You're now listening to another episode of the Renegade podcast. Tribute to one and only Donavan Bennett from Sportsnet. He's a commentator, journalist, video essayist for Sportsnet. One of my favorite people in sports media, especially up here in Canada. And the interview will start 3, 2, 1, go. And we are off. We are off.
Oh.
Hello. We are off.
Hey.
Yeah, it's audio only, so you don't have to show your face.
Okay. Cool. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good, bro. How you doing, man?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, man. The first question I want to ask is when you, again, because I remember you, like, it was back in the day, like, you just started at Sportsnet, like, did you expect the way that your career has been going recently? Did you expect any of that to happen, or was that something you always sort of believed in happening in the first place?
I don't know if I would say expect, because the industry is constantly changing.
Yeah.
Some of the things I have done or am doing didn't really exist when I first got there. So
yeah.
It's tough to really expect or project.
Yeah.
And Sportsnet was such a different place than Score, so it's tough to exactly figure out how the lay of the land is. But certainly, as I look back, things that I've done, things I've worked on, types of stories I've told, platforms that I've worked on, it's something that I have manifested, thought about, prayed on, worked towards. And so, in the moment, you're so focused on the task and the assignment and the production and what's next and what the next level that you want to get to that don't really think about it. But I do try to pause and think back to whether it's my start at Sportsnet, my start in the industry, myself back in university, and just remind myself that this is what I was hoping and chasing for.
Wow, that's a great answer. It's interesting you mentioned your university background, because I just graduated from Humber College for radio broadcasting, and the thing that really sort of kind of like struck me in a certain type of way, especially like the last semester, was there's this sort of sense of like everybody kind of has now figured out a roadmap of where they want to go. And I mean, this whole podcast was really just something I always wanted to do, but I always thought, like, am I really gonna like grind away trying to find people to talk to? But I'll never forget, my first interview was with this rapper called World 3.0, and he was kind enough to talk to me. We had a conversation for about an hour, and ever since then, it's just been up and up and up. And, there's this one article that you wrote. It was about, it was after the Chiefs won their third Super Bowl. It was against the 49ers in 2024, I think, last year. And obviously, like, I didn't really agree with the basis of that article, but, like, I really liked the way that you sort of had the sort of enthusiasm, and you had your reasoning, you had your details. Like, what was the inspiration behind that? Or was that something you always felt like, you always felt that way until that moment?
So I don't even remember what I wrote in the article. But I will tell you my rationale and reasoning in writing articles, and essentially, it's pretty... It's pretty simple. There's so much out there on every topic. The market is oversaturated with content.
Yeah.
And so if I have an idea for an article, I stop and ask myself, well, one, am I adding to the conversation?
Yes.
Or am I just adding noise? And, so is there a different angle, different perspective that I can add to it? And then two, is like, can I say it with my chest? Like, is this something I really, truly believe, and I can back up, I can put thought behind it, and people who, like you, may not necessarily agree with my viewpoints, but they can rock with the concept that I wrote the article in the first place. And you talked about university. I studied. I went to Western. I studied media information and technoculture and sociology. I got a minor in philosophy. It was just like 10 extra time. Looking at my diploma, I'm like, oh man, if I get like a couple more credits, I could add a line to my degree, or I bet no problem. And so I took some more philosophy courses, and a lot of it is super theoretical or just super random. Like if you got a robot car and it's driving and it could get in an accident, does it swerve to the left and kill one lady, or does it swerve to the right and kill 14 people? Which is the right answer? Like, I don't know. Like, why am I in class in London thinking about this? What is the application to my life in the future? I'm not going to be working for Waymo or Tesla. So but what philosophy did teach me is how to think and how to make arguments and cases and back them up and lay them out, more importantly. So if you read one of my articles, it's a philosophy paper. That's what it is.
Wow.
This is what I believe. This is my thesis statement. These are the premises that I'm going to use evidence to prove those premises. And if you agree on this premise and this premise and this premise, then you should agree on the conclusion that this is what I believe. Now, maybe I might lose you, but you're going to see in detail that this is what I believe and why. And so whether it's going on air and making argument about something, whether it's writing an article, whether it is my wife asking me a question on what swimming lesson we should sign up our kid for. This is how I think. I literally lay it out that way. And so the Phil in university, for all those people whose parents are like, what are you going to do with this? It's a valid question. But it's kind of changed how I think and made me, I would say, somewhat logical in that my articles follow deductive reasoning, and hopefully you can agree. And listen, I wrote that the Raptors should trade Kyle Lowry, and many people didn't really rock with that one, and thankfully they didn't. But the point is, I had my reasoning, my rationale, and you can understand the viewpoint even if you didn't like the end.
That's a brilliant answer, man. Because again, I do get those sort of kind of like philosophical vibes from you do like because you do this little thing with Sportsnet where like you do this sort of like video essay type of thing, right? That they upload on Sportsnet, they air it on TV. This is one that really caught my attention. It was the one about the Olympics, right? It was right after, I think during the Olympics or right after, during the middle of the Olympics. And I was really just the amount of enthusiasm and passion and, again, detail-oriented. I really, really like that. Like, so when you do stuff like that for Sportsnet, right? Do they, like, give you a script? Do you write it yourself? Do you do it in one take? How does it work?
So I write it myself. I, again, have an idea, a thesis on what I think might be interesting, what I think might meet the moment, or might surmise or recap a sporting event or sporting moment or game. And so my thoughts just all go into basically the notes app of my iPhone as they come to me over the span of a couple weeks or a couple days or a couple hours. I kind of put them all down there, and then when I sit and write it, I kind of go through them and see is there a link between this and that? Does this flow? Is this a good example? How can I know I want to show this video or show this sound or include this event. So how can I write to that to make sure we utilize it? Because the star of those things is really the pictures. And so you're just basically trying to give a voice to the great footage that, you know, we have and that has been shot. So that's what those are. And so there's always a thesis statement. So, you know, it's like, okay, we're going to do an essay about Simone Biles for the Olympics. You know, there's a lot of people doing Simone Biles content. You know, mine is, she's got X amount of awards. I think her biggest legacy might be how she opened up the mental health conversation. And so, you know, that's what that one's going to be. You know, we're hype about all these Olympians, but guess what? What do they have in common? Most of them winning medals are first and second generation Canadians. So maybe when people are having the immigration conversation, let's keep that in mind. And keep that same energy is why for the 18 days Olympics you're waving the flag, so happy that all these people from other places in the world decided to live here. So it just starts with a thesis like that, a belief, a feeling, and then I fill it out with information, and it could just be like the most interesting thing I find about an event or person. So I did one for Ovechkin. He broke the record, and my thing was like, you know, that's up in the slot, he's a sniper, whatever. But how is this guy still playing? Like, this guy parties hard, you know, it's like drinking straight Russian vodka. It was just kind of like a goof. And he's a power forward, and they historically do not last long. He's defying like all logic.
He is.
He's playing well. You know, he's got more hits than anybody since he entered the league.
That's
so, like, he's got a lot of goals, but, like, in order to get a lot of goals, he has to play a lot of games. And, like, that might be the most interesting thing about him. So, that's basically how those essays go.
Wow. That's a little bit more simple than I thought, but, because I'll tell you a story. So, this is during the time where, like, I used to watch a lot of sports, and I still do, but not as much as before. But the one thing I appreciate, unlike, you know, people, you know, down south in the U.S., where it feels like ESPN, Fox Sports, Barstool, it feels like all they want is engagement forming, clicks, clickbait, rage bait. I feel like in sports, I know there's a certain issue with sports in regards to just broadcasting and stuff, but I never felt like whatever takes you guys are giving, I never felt like none of it comes out of malice. Even if you guys are criticizing, it comes out, you know, there isn't personal attacks. But when I turn on ESPN, I turn on First Take, it's all it is just personal attacks, ring counting, stat watching. It's just, it boggles my mind, you know? Like, I can't imagine how you feel when you're in the industry up here, you're seeing the stuff going on down there, you're like, how is this even liable?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an aspect to our industry, and this is a reaction to the medium that is giving people what they want and what they think they want. And with the social media aspect of things, with the algorithm aspect of things, and the viral aspect of things, I think there's some people who've gamed the system. They know, if I do this topic, and if I reach this decibel, and if you put this headline, it's going to do numbers. And ultimately, that we are in a business, not charity. The whole point is to get audience, keep audience, return, you know, on the investment of you, you know, in your role. And I think a lot of people, like in the same way James Harden has figured out, like, if I just swoop underneath this man's hand when he's hand checking me and act like it was my shooting motion and I get 2 free throws, like, okay, I mean, if you're going to call the hand checking rules that way, I'm just going to do that end of the line. And I think in the same way, like, they've figured out, well, if these are if every time I need a free throw, if I can just go Jordan LeBron, I'm going to do it, and people are going to share it, tweet it, get vexed. And the other thing is that they figured out is, I think it's human nature to want to be liked, to want to be appreciated, want to be loved.
Yes.
The impressions have no idea.
Yeah.
The impressions have no idea if you watch something and hated it and loved it or neutral. It does not matter. And it counts the same. And the ad revenue counts the same.
Yeah.
The audience numbers on television count the same. So I think if you're comfortable with that, and kind of wearing the black hat, and upsetting people, some people, you're going to do numbers and you're going to have a spot. And I think on most storylines like that are so polarizing, you're going to upset some people, but also some people are going to hail you up.
Yeah.
And so, if you talk about the Dallas Cowboys every day, whatever angle you take on them, good, bad, or bad, there's going to be a massive audience who rocks with you. If you say something positive, then, America's team fans are going to be with you.
Yeah.
If you crush them, then all the Cowboy haters are going to be on your side. So I think there's also that aspect. So I think that's essentially what where we've gone, and it's just a personal choice on what you value, what you want to do, and what you think you can do well, and what you want to be known for.
Wow, that's a lot to like.
But it's not unique to sports, right? Like TMZ, and Extra, all those shows. Yeah. That's been around for a long time, right? Yeah. You've had on those channels, those magazine, tabloid, entertainment shows. Yeah. And then you've had the news, right? Yeah. Like there's been a separation between those two things. Like that's not new. You've had, pop, the music stations, whatever, all these music stations, whatever. And then you had like talk radio, right? Yeah. Like, CFRB 1010, whatever. Yeah. So we've always had that dynamic. Yeah. And we're just seeing it maybe a little bit more distinctly in sports right now.
Wow. So it's interesting you mentioned, the CRTC, you mentioned radio. Well, what do you think is the biggest danger to Canadian radio / media? And I would include Sportsnet and TSN and stuff like that.
Biggest danger to Canadian radio or Canadian media?
Just both. I'm mentioning both because I feel like they're kind of connected, obviously.
I mean, I would say the biggest danger to radio, period, Canadian or otherwise, is just that people don't have alarm clocks on their nightstand anymore. Yeah, it's just not. We less and less need to listen to the radio. Yeah, we can from a podcast perspective, from built-in apps in our cars. Yeah. From your Google Home or Alexa that can play any song that you want. Like we don't need to listen to the radio. I remember, because I'm old, getting WBLK from Buffalo in Toronto and staying up late to listen to The Quiet Storm and putting my cassette tape in my Sony boombox, which most of these people listening to this don't know what cassette tape is, and waiting for that new Wu-Tang song and pressing record, trying to time it up so that I would have that new Wu-Tang song on my cassette tape. Yeah. Like, if I explain that to someone, your age or younger now, they would look at me like I'm crazy. Yeah. Because if you want to listen to any song, you just need to essentially say it out loud at all times. So I think the demand and the need for radio, period, is lessening. Yeah. And then when it comes to Canadian radio, it's not too dissimilar. the Canadian media, I think the need for it, I think, is still high, but the competition is higher because we have access to more options. Yeah. We can stream, whether it's audio or video from other countries. We have podcasts. We have, illegal streaming sites. Yeah. And we just have more versions of entertainment. I can just sit on TikTok all day and be entertained. If I really wanted to, I don't have to turn on a television or turn on the radio. So I think the amount of competition is much higher. I think that the fear is that we lose some of our Canadian identity. Yeah. And so, if you don't need to listen to, Flow 93.5 and hear Canadian artists and Canadian conversations, if you're in Toronto, if you can just go online and listen to The Breakfast Club, which is great, and I love Charlemagne the God, but he's not talking about the Canadian aspect of Kendrick playing at the Rogers Centre for 2 nights. Yeah. And if people should have gone and not gone, and if, Jagmeet Singh, the former NDP leader, should have been there, and if he should have apologized, should have Jake called him a goof, and what does this mean about it? Like, he might talk about Kendrick doing 2 shows, but he's going to do it without the proper context or understanding, for us as Canadians. So I think that's what gets lost, as we have more options, we just go to options from different countries. Yeah. We're not really fortifying the understanding and the culture of our own country.
Wow. That's again, another great answer. There's this little thing you started doing where you're interviewing people now, and I saw that little sort of interview you did with DeMar DeRozan, and it sort of was kind of eye opening in a way. So how can I say this? So when Sportsnet sort of kind of gives you these people to interview, do you in the beginning, do you feel intimidated, or do you you already know what to say and how to respond to when those athletes sort of have a conversation with you?
Well, I would say Sportsnet doesn't give them to me. I generally either chase them myself or they're pitched to me. Wow. By an agent or a book publisher. Yeah. Team PR or whatever. So that's generally how it happens. Am I intimidated? Generally, no. I'm pretty focused on what I'm going to do, what I'm going to ask, why, getting into the research, what's the angle, how is it going to be produced, that type of thing. Yeah. I'm more, I would say, and this is going back to me as an athlete, I didn't really get nervous before games. I was more anxious. Okay. I'm so inflexible now because I never stretched before sports as a kid because I was just so excited to be playing. I didn't want to bother with anything else. So I didn't think about I just wanted to get going. Yeah. And so in the same way, I'm more anxious, excited to get going, but also when you're doing those interviews, a lot is out of your control. Yeah. Is the athlete going to show up on time? If they're late, are you going to lose some time? Yeah. If you lose time, what questions are you going to cut? Yeah. Are the camera people going to do the right thing? Yeah. How do the shots look? Does this room work for how we want to shoot it? Are we going to get the audio without any issues? So I'm more anxious, that everything is going to be on point and proper. Because once you do the interview, you can't go back. Right? Yeah. If I mess up a video, essay, script, or voice, I could change that. If I don't like what I wrote in an article, I can literally go on the internet and change it. Yeah. I can't. Once you shoot the interview, you can't change it. You can't give that athlete for one time and one time only. So I'm a bit. I wouldn't say nervous. I'm a bit anxious. I would say interviewing LeBron would be the one time I was, I could literally feel chest beating and I was nervous. Also, movie junkets.
Yeah.
It's kind of like speed dating. So what happens for movies is they put the actor in the chair.
Yeah.
Have all these press from around the world in essentially a holding room. You're almost pent up, and then they come and get you. You wait in the hall for a couple minutes as the person before you finishes. They finish, they're out.
Yeah.
They bring you in.
Yeah.
The minute your butt cheek hits the chair, the timer goes off, and you get whatever it was negotiated, 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
They give you a sign for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They give you a sign for 1 minute, and they wrap you.
Yeah.
And then you're out.
Yeah.
And they give you the footage. So there's you don't set up the cameras. No, like we're giving you the footage.
Yeah.
It's gonna have our look. We're just being super efficient with it. Actors' time is a good press for the movie, and so it made me nervous about that because it's just awkward.
Yeah.
You don't get to build any rapport with the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
But it has to come off as a casual conversation.
Yeah.
If you got 5 minutes and they, didn't really answer your first question well, you're like, oh boy, that was a waste. Or if they spent way too much time answering the question and then you don't have much time left, it's like, okay, you got to edit your question on the fly. So those ones are nerve-wracking for a different reason, but I wouldn't say I get, nervous in the traditional sense of the word.
Okay. Wow. Another very, very, very good answer. So now with, the World Cup is next year, and it feels like Canada is on sort of I feel like this is Canada's golden generation or close to it. What are your expectations of them next year? Because I feel like I'm way higher on them than most people. I really think, because I look at, the sort of miracles that happened last couple World Cups, right? You had Ghana in 2010, you had Costa Rica 2014, you had Croatia 2018 and 2022, and Morocco on the other side of the bracket in 2022. I'm like, why can't Canada go on that type of run? Like, I mean, anything is possible, right? So.
I'd agree. I mean, I think health is obviously the biggest question because we don't yet have the depth in all world players. Like we have a couple, obviously.
Yeah.
I think Davies and Jonathan David I would put in that conversation.
Yeah.
But if one of the top players is hurt, I think the drop off is huge. I think we legit have 60 players that you could put in a 23 and be very comfortable.
Yeah.
But I think we have, 13 or 14 players that you could put in a starting 11 and feel like we can get out the group.
Yeah.
And so if you're missing, a couple of those players, then all of a sudden that 11, the level for whoever's going to fill in drops off. But I think the other interesting thing about Canada is a year is a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if we know the level of a lot of their guys, right? There's guys on their team and just age and profile where they're playing that have taken huge steps in a short amount of time. We obviously knew Davies was coming and Jonathan David has been good for a while. But someone like Bombito, quickly, goes from, a nice player, but it's not really in the national team setup to like a stalwart on the team.
Yeah.
Boning. His star rose really quickly and, it's kind of plateaued. His club situation hasn't been great, but, if he's playing and in a good situation, like he's someone who could take another jump.
Yeah.
You could say the same thing, literally exactly, about Tejan.
Yeah.
And the health aspect of him. So even some people who you haven't seen that jump yet, but it could be coming. Sigor, Saliba, Jaden Nelson.
Yeah. So Promise David as well.
Promise David, you could tell me that he's Canada's leading goal scorer in the World Cup, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
You could tell me he's someone that they throw on for PKs and an extra man in the box at the end of games when they're chasing a goal, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like he's fascinating, and like, does he move this summer? Is the move good? Should he just stay where he is?
Yeah.
Continue to play and bang in goals, or should he get to another level? So, Promise David, Jebusons, same thing. So I would say I'm pretty bullish on the fact that they should expect at this point to be winning things. They should expect to win the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
They should expect to get out the group.
Yeah.
I think what the ultimate ceiling is and how you make close the gap between the being ranked in the 30s, which is still, best ever for them, to can we start getting into the teams where Mexico and the U.S. Have been? I think that gap will be closed if some of those players that we're talking about take their game to another level, and all of the big guns are healthy and fit next summer. So
you're kind of saying like quarterfinals is like the ceiling, or maybe even a semifinals, like Copa America last year. Are you leaning towards that, or are you kind of you're kind of like wait and see type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, everyone being fit, right, which is a huge asterisk. I think Trapot breaking his leg right before the last World Cup was massive, because I think he should have had the number one start back then.
Yeah.
I don't. The way they played in Copa, the way they played, against arguably the best team in Africa, in the Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
A respectable team from Europe, a team that qualifies for the Euros all the time. Ukraine is hoping to qualify for the World Cup. There's no reason why in an expanded World Cup, in terms of numbers of teams, with home soil being there, I think no reason. I think the biggest thing is not getting out of the group is potentially winning the group, because if you win the group, the track has them staying in Canada, advancing out of Vancouver. Yeah. Whereas if you just get out the group, but you don't win it, now you're going to the U.S.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, even though it's a North American World Cup, and so you might think that you're on home soil from a continent perspective.
Yeah.
You play some of these Southern American, European teams in the U.S.
Yeah.
You're going to be the road team.
Yeah.
So I think staying in Canada for them is massive. Not only just to capture the imagination of the nation, give us a memory and a moment, but also literally it is massive for their ability to advance, because certainly they would be favored a little bit more at home.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Very interesting answer. So the first time I saw you like on TV was actually, funny enough, was on a Tim and Sid kind of segment, right? And you were talking to 660. Tim wasn't in that day for whatever reasons during the 2018 World Cup, right? I think Argentina lost like 3-0 against Croatia, and 660, he's going off against Messi, and you kind of chimed in. You had some very interesting sort of comments. How was that experience like? How was it like working with sort of two giants of Canadian sort of sports media in general? And how you feel about the show, being kind of, I don't know, canceled or ended or whatever? Did you feel like that was kind of like sort of premature in a way? Or do you think that was always going to happen at some point?
I love my time working with Tim and Sid. Learned a lot from them. Got a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities. So that was all love. I mean, I love that show. I still feel like if it was on now, it would do well. It would have a spot in the culture.
Yeah.
It had a great run, though, when you look at It's if you go back to the Score tonight at the Score.
Yeah.
Tim and Sid Uncut the podcast at the Score. Tim and Sid the radio show at Fan 590, and then Tim and Sid the TV show on Sportsnet, and then Tim and Friends. I mean, you're talking about like a 2-decade run in different incarnations of the show, and that literally doesn't happen in our industry. So, like, aside from PTI, you don't really see shows last that long. And so, I would say, although I wish the show was still around, I'm grateful that it had the length of the run that it did, and I'm also grateful I was a part of it and what it meant for my career.
Yeah.
In terms of that show, the famous Broad show, I still, to this day, get people, someone did it today, actually. People tweeting at me in my DMs, pissed off about that. When Messi finally won, when Messi finally won Copa, and then again, when
World
Messi won the World Cup, both of us were harassed on Twitter nonstop. I was just sitting there.
Yeah.
Like Sid called him a fraud. I did not. I couldn't tell you again what I said.
Yeah.
I think if my memory serves correct, I think my overarching point was he's in the conversation of GOATs, whether obviously he's compared to Ronaldo, but Maradona from the Argentina perspective, Pele from the game's greatest player perspective. And in order to sit in that room in VIP with those guys, you have to win an international trophy. Like, this is not my opinion. This is just what it is.
Yeah.
And so until they're able to, and there was talk, if you remember, there was talk before that and talk after that he was going to retire from the national team. And thus, he wasn't going to have the opportunity, once retired, to win that trophy.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty binary. Like, you need to have that prerequisite to enter the club. Yeah. He doesn't yet. He's going to have to get it. This is a huge missed opportunity.
Wow.
Sid calls him a fraud, whatever. And then, the rest is history. People are still vexed about that. But it's there's two things that people will not let go and still tweet me about and harass me about is Messi and it is talking about COVID. Those are the two things.
Really?
So don't get on the wrong side of people in regards to Messi or vaccine passports and wearing a mask, evidently, is what I've learned.
Oh, wow. It's super, super interesting you said that, because the one thing that I found was very interesting of sort of Sid Seixeiro, more specifically about Sid, because it feels like it's difficult to separate Sid and Tim or whatever. What do you think is Seixeiro's ultimate legacy in Canadian media and sports media in general? Is it a hot take to say that he might be the greatest, or maybe in the conversation of some of the greatest pundits to come out of this country in terms of just sports commentary in general? Or is that kind of too premature?
Well, I think just by our very nature, we don't have many pundits, right? Like, we have some that do it at a high level. The guys at Overdrive, certainly Bruce Arthur. Yeah. Obviously Sid, Morgan Campbell. Yeah. But just go to whatever your favorite newspaper is, and do they have an opinion columnist in sports? Probably not. Yeah. I think Bob McCowan was that guy for a lot of people for a long time. I think Sid was one of the people that filled up that vacuum when Bob. I won't say left, because he then had his own podcast, but left in terms of working for a legacy media company. But the thing I would say about Sid is, I think people generally can smell it if you're fake. It's funny, we were having this conversation where he called the man a fraud. Yeah. But I think people can tell when you're not being authentic, when you are just being a wrestling heel and being extra. And I can tell you, like, you love him or hate him.
Yeah.
The Sid that you see is the exact same person.
Yeah.
Off camera. Like, he's not doing anything, just to do it. That's how he feels. It's how passionate he is. It's how much energy he gives, which is remarkable because, like, I would be in a permanent, nap coma after being on air if I exuded the amount of energy that he does, just, talking about anything.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing about Sid is that you can't really fool him.
Yeah.
Any topic, he can go.
Yeah.
Any sport, he can go.
Yeah.
Present tense, past tense.
Yeah.
And when I say any topic, I mean any topic.
Yeah.
Politics, culture, movies.
Yeah.
Like, he knows, but also, it's one thing to know, has strong opinions about literally everything. And so I think that's the other thing about Sid is that he's incredibly multidimensional.
Yeah.
And I think, again, people remember the hot takes and whatnot because they are memorable.
Yeah.
But I think there's great humor there.
Yeah.
When the women won the gold medal at the Olympics, he kind of, randomly off the top of his head screamed, "Knock, knock, who's there? Gold medal in the face," I believe was his quote. And then the team started, saying that, and Spooner, and that was like one of those things afterwards.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if you remember, he was on air when there was a shooting, an attack on Parliament Hill in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And, that's one of those times where, I don't know, are you really going to talk about what the Blue Jays are going to do at the trade deadline? Yeah. And, it just doesn't really seem to matter in those moments. And he is just as able to fill time and to give context in those moments. Yeah. So he's really, he's very, very talented naturally. Yeah. And so I would say that's the biggest thing that separates Sid from a lot of other people in the industry.
Okay. Wow. Oh, wow. Why do you think, again, why do you think he was, let go of in Sportsnet? I know there was rumors of, a little bit of a fall. I don't know how true that is, right? Not just internet rumors. But do you think he will ever sort of be back on our screens at any point? Or do you think he might just go the independent route and maybe start his own podcast, or maybe he does something with you? Like, where do you think his barometer is going to be at in the next couple of years?
I don't have the license to talk too much about his situation, past or present. I think that's his story. Yeah. To tell him the way that he wants to tell it. Yeah. I do know that, and I can say that, it's all love between Sid and Rogers. He's I know that for a fact, but I don't. It's something that he would say. Yeah. And I think his brother Alex, works for Rogers on the radio side and is still doing a great job. So it's not like it was this ugly scenario. Yeah. And I don't know what exactly he'll do, but I know that he'll whatever he does, it'll be major. Like, he's not. I don't think he's coming to do something that's kind of beneath the level of what he's worked on in the past. I think he expects a level of quality from those he works with and from himself, and so I think whatever he does will be a high level production. Don't know what that is, and I wouldn't dare guess. Yeah. But I think the best. Sid certainly doesn't need any promo or explanation for me. So I think the best narrator of his stories.
All right. Very, very, very interesting answer. Do you still talk to Sid or Tim? Do you still do you talk to him on the phone or anything like that the last couple of years?
Well, I don't really talk to anybody on the phone.
Okay.
So no.
Okay.
But I definitely do. I definitely keep in touch. Definitely talk to them. Definitely reach out with a random, text or something. Something on my mind that's funny or vice versa.
Yeah.
I mean, I still work at the same place as Tim, so even though our shifts are opposite ends of the clock, still consider him a good teammate and better chance I'll see him socially than at work actually. But but those are the homies.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. It's funny actually. I'll tell you a little story because I actually did interact with Sid actually on email. So I'll never forget. So I don't know why I searched up again 660, and I don't know why I searched up his email. And I just guessed, right? It showed me, and I copied, pasted it on my Gmail, and he responded right away. And that shocked me. He said, "Man, I don't have." He said he essentially said he was busy, but he said I'm gonna be keeping tabs on what you're doing, and that was the biggest stamp of approval I have had, right? Even though I've interviewed people with millions of subscribers and stuff, that was pretty much the biggest stamp of approval. What was that moment for you when you were sort of starting out? You got to sort of shout out from somebody bigger than you or more sort of has more notoriety in the industry. How did that inspire you, and how you use that sort of inspiration to keep you driving to what you want to do right now?
I don't know if I have an exact similar story, but if we want to keep it to Sid, I played college football in university.
Yeah.
He did some sideline reporting. And I believe he did some color as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, he worked on the games for a period of time.
Yeah.
While I was playing in university, before I eventually worked at the Score, and I actually interned my going into my last year of university, trying to get more practical experience.
Yeah.
And so I interned on a show called CFL Snap.
Yeah.
That was hosted by Dwayne Ford. Had a bunch of co-hosts in different times. And in any event, so I had a hat, that said CFL Snap on it. I guess they gave me as a little parting gift or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had a game on the Score, so it was the game of the week or whatever.
Yeah.
And I happened to score a touchdown in that game. And this is a time where Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson, for that, was scoring touchdowns, but he had all these elaborate props, and he was doing all this stuff, and it was a thing every game of we got to watch the Cincinnati Bengals. So no one said before that. We got to see what Chad's going to do, what he's got in store for us this week.
Yeah.
So I score, and then after you score a touchdown, the sideline camera follows you for a bit as they talk about you, and it's super awkward because you're trying to act natural, but this camera's filming you, and do you act like you see it? Do you not see it? Do you do the thing where someone starts talking into the camera and thinking their mom or their friend back home, but then the audio's not all the way up, so you can't really hear them. So there's just that whole vibe. So anyways, as that sideline camera comes to film me after scoring a touchdown, whatever, I put the hat on, the CFL Snap hat on. That's my Chad Ochocinco prop. Yeah. And then I just go into a full promo for the show, whatever it was, Wednesdays at 6:30 on the Score. Don't miss it, CFL Snap, whatever.
Yeah.
And he shouted that out, and he found it so funny and hilarious. when he shouted that out, and then like I think shouted out me or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was cool that he shouted out my aspiring broadcast career, and would reference it afterwards a couple times, like before I was an established on air person. But even he even gave me great advice in the craft. He probably doesn't remember doing this, and I forgot until telling the story. But so the score, he did some sit-down interviews, and that's obviously what I tried to do, and I'm doing now. And I remember early in my career doing it. I was asking him about re-asks, and so re-asks are, the score didn't have a lot of resources, and so might not be able to afford to send multiple cameras and camera operators to an interview. So what that is you film the interview subject with the camera. You're sitting across from them. You ask let's say 5 questions, they answer them, they leave, and then you flip that camera around and you re-ask, hence the name, those questions again. So that you have both the question and the answer on film, and then you kind of patch them together in order after the fact. So that's something we had to do at the score, because we weren't doing 3, 4, 5 camera shoots like Sportsnet is right now. And he gave me great tips on on the art of a re-ask, and how to do it, how to make it sound natural, and what he did, which was super helpful because I wasn't a great actor. I mean, I wasn't even really a great broadcaster. Never mind, I'm going to pretend to be, a broadcaster. And so, his help for me in my career, both in the promo and the shout out of my CFL snap, ridiculous touchdown celebration promo, and then also when I was in the industry, was really helpful and valuable.
Okay. Wow, that's a really, really interesting story. You mentioned that you played college football. Was football your first sort of love in sports? And did you think at any point when you were playing that you could have went pro? At any point, if CFL or the NFL, did you think you were good enough? Did you think you were good enough to go pro? And
So I played, at a time when no one was really checking for 5'9", 170-pound Canadian running backs. And the running backs that did make it, they were not really. I mean, they were running backs, technically, but literally they were special teams players. They were just running down and covering kicks, not even really returning kicks. But I knew it was a bit different, that the best college Canadian running backs didn't go on and play in the CFL at the position of running back, right? It's not I'm like the Reggie Bush of Canada, and I'm just going to go get drafted and keep moving. So I had no real illusions. I was like a dream and a goal. I had really no real illusions that I was going to play pro. Even that's what every kid hopes for when they're young, but also I had a simultaneous and equal hope of working in broadcasting. And working in sports. And so I was kind of chasing those two dreams simultaneously. In my last year, I didn't have one team show interest in the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They were terrible at the time. So if only the worst team in the CFL is checking for me, that's probably not going to be the route. So I actually put all my energy and interest into making the broadcasting thing happen. Little did I realize that unlike the NFL, the CFL is not as proactive in terms of scouting and evaluating prospective players. They're actually super last minute with it because they have less resources. So I was premature in thinking there wasn't a lot of interest, and actually there was some interest from teams closer to the draft, including the Argos. But at that point, I wasn't really training and going after it that way. So I any faint chance I had was somewhat limited. But I made a decision that I was going to go hard on the media side. And although there was some interest, hey, you come to camp or whatever, what I didn't want was to just spend 2 weeks of my life being a tackling dummy in practice, put my dreams in the broadcasting realm on hold, but more importantly, send a message to the score who is willing to take a chance on me.
Yeah.
That, like, hey, I'm not all in. I'm only partially in. And, like, in 2 months, if the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have, like, a bunch of injuries, I might be on a plane to Manitoba and leave you in like, alert. So, I felt no ways about fully committing to broadcasting. And the other interesting thing is, like, from a Canadian perspective, not that this is the reason you make these choices, but it's not like there's a huge financial incentive to be, a CFL, rookie player. So, I mean, maybe if I was American and the difference between NFL and broadcasting and the calculation would have been a bit different, but but I think that was the right choice for me in that season of my life. Wow,
that's an interesting story, man. That's wow. So it's funny because before I wanted to do the podcast, the sort of podcasting I'm doing the last 6-7 months. My dad, because he's connected to some people in the sort of radio industry, media industry, and one of them is Sherman Hamilton. And he does he's part of the Raptors pre-game commentary, post-game commentary, right? How is it working with him if you did, and sort of how does your relationship with him sort of kind of work out throughout the years?
He's the OG. That's the guy. He's it's funny, in small world, but
yeah.
In I remember meeting Sherm in my career and him telling me that I can't remember, but someone in my family or extended family, one of my aunties or something used to babysit him when he was young, and my grandparents would always send Jamaican bun for him. So yeah, he's the OG, and just a great Canadian basketball story that this guy plays for the national team, puts in all that time, and then is able to translate that into being able to tell the story of our national team in terms of the NBA, but also our national team in terms of Canada basketball via the airwaves. So, there's a reason why Sherm has been doing it for a long time. He's doing it at a high level. And maybe even more importantly, he treats everyone that he works with impeccably well. So, yes, that Sherm, he's the OG and a great kid.
Wow. I swear my dad used to he told me a story a couple months ago where he used to play basketball with them, and he said he thought he was gonna go pro. He thought he was so above everybody else, right? Because my dad was good back in the day. Granted, he was like a point guard, he's not that tall, This isn't a shot or anything, but you know how it is with heights and basketball, and it's so funny because I don't know why I started digging a little bit, and I'm this guy was kind of I don't know, he was kind of ahead of his time. There was a little bit of that Sean Livingston, the healthy kind of Markel Fultz type of vibe with him, and I mean and he did advance on this great game in Canada, and just seeing just the amount of just talent in the NBA with Canadian players. I mean, it's surreal. It was crazy when Nash won it back in the mid-2000s, but he wasn't he was Canadian for sure. But but when Shea won it this year, it gave me that feeling of we are really now at the forefront. We are now again. We have people controlling the conversation. We have people dominating the game, and if OKC becomes the next dynasty, this could be the first time that a Canadian player is out and out the best player in the world, which is just surreal. And also, what's also, again, I want to sort of kind of flip it back with the Raptors is that That's one thing that I have an issue with people kind of like being super impatient with Masai, is that Masai built a team that was not even treading water after Chris Bosh left, by the way, right? And it felt like the Raptors were like the Chiefs before Mahomes, where like they had great players, they had some good teams, they got close a couple of times, but they couldn't even like have sustained success. And then Masai comes in, he kind of resets the table, gets Kyle Lowry, and then he surrounds the team with, hustle and defense and a little bit of shooting, and it built up. I never forget, in 2016, we made that conference finals. It was tied 2-2. And I started thinking about, is this the year? Is this because if Raptors won that year, I don't know if I would ever go down from that high. But seeing that 2019 run was so surreal. The sort of the parade afterwards was, again, I have never seen that before. I still get goosebumps talking about it. And just the amount of progress we made in this country in regards to basketball, again, needs to be talked about more in more of an international sense, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, Michael Bartlett, what he's done with Canada basketball, and certainly Rowan Barrett, what he's done with the senior men's national team. But even we're seeing it on the women's side with, as we talk today, 4 players in the WNBA on the women's side, but also, next tournament we'll have, 6, 7, 8 women's players in the March Madness tournament.
Yeah.
Just goes to show the level that our players at, but also, for me, it's also those players didn't get to that level by themselves. There's great coaching, great infrastructure, great resource management. Even, quite frankly, I was at the senior women's national team training camp at Kerr Hall in Toronto, campus TMU last week, watching the scrimmage. Even great officiating. There's officials there, officiating the scrimmage to help them get ready for, the tournament this summer that they've got ahead of them. And, no one knows those officials are there. They're not getting any hype or praise about it, but all these high school games, all these AU games, all these CBL games, they don't happen unless you have the ecosystem and the infrastructure around basketball. So, when Shea wins his MVP, I hope, some of those officials that he had at McNabb and Hamilton, say I remember that kid. I remember I was part of his journey, before, Scott Foster was officiating him in the NBA. It was me. So the Canada basketball is on the rise. And, I think by the time we get to 2028 in the LA Olympics, we should be talking about a men's and women's, program that, expect to get medals.
Yeah. I mean, I also want to expand on the Raptors point. I'll never forget when I saw that first We the North ad and that whole campaign during that season where we traded away Rudy Gay. It looked like we're gonna rebuild. We're gonna tank for Andrew Wiggins. I remember all that, and we go on this crazy run, 3rd seed. Sure, that Game 7 loss against Brooklyn still pisses me off to this day, and then, and it just we proved every single season. I never forget, this 2018, right? We're the number 1 seed. Dwayne Casey was coach of the year, and I'm thinking to myself, are we gonna make the finals? LeBron was still there, and then that series happened against the Cavs, and it was just oh my gosh, and I never felt so deflated, and getting Kawhi, and then I started feeling like this is the year, right? And then I'll never forget there was a game we had against the Magic, and we were playing terrible that game. And when I saw Danny Green hit that game winner, I'm like, okay, this is different. And before the playoffs started, I said Raptors would win the whole thing. Sure, maybe was that biased? Yeah, it was. Was I being a little delusional at the time? Yeah. But when I saw it play out, I was just in awe. And just, even afterwards, too. Like, people forget that season afterwards, we were, like, record-wise, the second best team in the league. Right? We had more wins than the team that won the whole damn thing, the Lakers. Right? I remember we beat them in the bubble. People were saying that might be a finals rematch. And then we lose against Boston. And then we had a down season after that. You know, that Tampa season, the less it gets talked about, the better. Then we had, again, similar season in 2013 where, like, we had an okay-ish first half. Then Scotty Barnes, Siakam, Gary Trent, Fred VanVleet, they go crazy. Then we had a competitive series against the Sixers. And I thought to myself, okay, are we going to, like... And then we had a down season, and then that playing game, man, that's going to haunt me forever, too. And, then we kind of been rebuilding ever since then. And I understand people's frustration, but I feel like the fact we got, like, almost a decade of competitive basketball, where every game, before the game, you're like, man, the Raptors could win this game. Before, you were, like, hoping Raptors would win a single game. And now it's, like, it's so surreal. And look, when it's all said and done, I really think, you know, Raptors are, to me, one of the most important franchises in the NBA's history. Because you really think about the amount of great players that come out of there, the amount of great coaches, great staff, and just in general, right? I really feel like they are part of the NBA lore. And that, to me, that is the goal, right? Regardless how you feel about them now, you cannot deny that they have a place in sports history. And that, to me, is just surreal, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and credit to David Stern. People thought it was wild for him to take the game outside of the United States and come up to Canada. And, you know, I still feel like Vancouver, if they had more time, would have worked. But, Toronto, whether it's the Raptors, now the Tempo, world-class basketball city, producing great players, great teams, great culture.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, for sure. What are your expectations for the Raptors next season? I know they traded for Ingram. I know they have a top 10 pick. I know there's been Durant rumors and Giannis rumors and all that stuff. Like, what are you expecting? Are you expecting a play-in team? Are you expecting maybe be in the actual playoffs? Because the East seems like it's wide open. Knicks have no coach. Tatum tore his Achilles. They might trade Jaylen Brown for whatever reason. The Hawks are kind of a mess. The Pacers seem like maybe the de facto option, but even then, like, there hasn't been a back-to-back finalist since the Warriors with KD. So, what do you think? So, what do you expect from the Raptors? Do you think they could make a miracle run, like the Heat or maybe the Pacers this season? Well, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's impossible to predict what the Raptors will do next year because this year is not even over. There's still people making trades in the NBA Finals. Without knowing who they pick at 9, if they keep the pick at 9, if they trade, it's tough to say. But I think the timeline is a lot shorter than people expect. I think you can turn a franchise around in much quicker fashion from out of the playoffs to contention. Look at Cleveland, look at Orlando, look at Indiana. And I think the Raptors, look at the Knicks, technically. And the Raptors are right there, and I think they're bullish on getting another star to go with Scotty, because I think they believe he is a star. I'm excited for Masai to have a summer to cook once again, whether that's KD, Giannis, Ja Morant, more picks in this draft, which is loaded. I think they're going to be relevant, which will be nice.
Okay. Interesting answer for sure. Now I'm going to sort of pivot the conversation to something else, but who is the most famous person that you can like hit up anytime, have an actual conversation with on your socials, on your contacts?
everyone looks at famous differently.
Yeah.
So, tough to say. Like, I mean, I would say the two would be, I would say Donovan Bailey and Ricky Romero would be the two people that I would say, I'd say those two. I mean, I have lots of people in my contacts, but you're not necessarily using them all.
Yeah.
But I would say those would be the two. Maybe Pinball Clemens in there as well.
Wow.
So yeah, those would be the ones.
Okay, interesting. Who's the most famous person that like personally went up to you and said, "Hey man, I love your work. I love how you covered this. I love how you covered this game or this some sports in general."
I mean, it's going to sound like a humble brag, but a lot of people have said that, to be honest, which is always super flattering. When you get done doing an interview and the person said they really enjoyed it, you did a great job, like that's love and respect, and I don't take that for granted. I'd say the person who maybe was the most effusive with that praise, and it meant a lot. I was young in my career, and it was affirmation for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear it as regularly as I do now.
Yeah.
Would be Mike Tomlin.
Wow.
Coach of the Steelers.
Wow.
Went out to Pittsburgh to interview him for Black History Month, and he was like, "Where can I catch your work? Where can I see your show? You're doing a great job and whatnot." So that was cool.
Shout out to Mike.
Handle his business the right way.
Shout out to Mike, man. He gets way too much slander for things he can't really control himself. But now, obviously, I want to sort of kind of pivot to baseball and the Blue Jays in general, because it feels like the Blue Jays are kind of in this cycle the last couple of years where like there's talent there. They've had really good regular seasons. They haven't won a playoff game. In like it's been like 2016. It's been like 9 years, right? And they're in the playoff hunt, but it doesn't really feel like they're an actual contender. What do you think needs to happen for them to get to that point, or do you think that opportunity passed when Shohei Ohtani turned them down to go to the Dodgers last year?
I wouldn't say the opportunity passed because baseball is weird.
Yeah.
Like, just go through and look at the champions. It's we recently got Yankees, Dodgers in the World Series, which people would say, "Oh man, big markets, got all the money, whatever." But I've seen the Miami Marlins win championships in my life, so it's not necessarily always the case where the team with the biggest payroll and the biggest resources wins. Baseball is one of those sports that, for whatever reason, once you get in the dance, you have a shot.
Yeah.
And you've got the pitching lined up at the right time, a star that can carry you.
Yeah.
And a home field advantage, like you can go on a run.
Yeah.
We've seen that, and I mean, listen, I'm not going to bet money that's going to happen for the Blue Jays. I think getting to the postseason again, they would take. But I think, if you say we're going to take your three best starters, and try to ride them for a month, I would say the Blue Jays, outside of the Dodgers, who have a multiple Hall of Famers on their staff, I think the Blue Jays have as good an argument as anyone, and that's why we saw them, stack wins for the better part of 2 weeks. So it's a long season. I think more than anything what they've done is they've firmly put themselves into the buyer, not seller conversation at the deadline, which I think people were afraid of coming into this year. You got Vladdy lined up. There's no reason to tear it down. You're going to be contending. And so with some smart additions, why can't this team be similar to the team that added Price and Tulowitzki and was really, really fun to watch. So they're relevant I mean, it's June.
Okay.
Let's talk in August, but they're relevant right now, and I think that in itself is a big one.
Okay. Interesting answer. I want to kind of pivot back to the NBA, more specifically the NBA sort of finals. My take is that I feel like these two teams, to me, will be the two teams that'll meet each other again next year. Now, that might change. That might be a bit of a aberration of what's been going on in the last half plus decade. There's just parity and, sort of how dominant a team can be within the new CBA rules. But do you think whoever wins this championship, maybe more specifically, maybe OKC, do you think that team could be the next dynasty that defines the rest of this decade?
If it's OKC, yes. If it's Indiana, no, not necessarily. I think Indiana will be good for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be dynasty, but I think what you'll see more than anything is I think they've shown a blueprint of how you can and really need to build a team to win in this era because of the repeat attacks, because of the apron.
Yeah,
you can't just build a super team and think that you're going to be able to have the depth in order to win. Look at the Phoenix Suns, who everyone said was essentially guaranteed to be a strong playoff contender, and they haven't really done much. Look at the Clippers. Once they got Kawhi and PG, and obviously Paul George is no longer there, but that hasn't worked necessarily for them. So I think draft and develop, make smart, timely trades, and it's not so much about who you trade for, but it's about the fit.
Yeah,
Caruso is the right fit for what the Thunder needed and plays the right way.
Yeah,
and plays both ends. Isaiah Hartenstein is the right fit for what the Thunder needed and plays the right way. Plays both. Much better player than these two, but Pascal Siakam was the right fit for what the Pacers needed and plays the right way. And plays both ways. You can say that and for Neesmith. So, and not assuming you need a lottery pick to draft impactful players. Nemhard wasn't a high draft pick. J-Dub, Jalen Williams wasn't necessarily a high draft pick, but they're great fits on those teams. And more importantly, they've developed those players while they have them. So I think we're going to get off of I'm just going to accumulate stars and figure the rest out.
Yeah.
And get back to utilizing the draft, utilizing trade where it makes sense based off of your team needs, and prioritizing two-way players that are team players.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's a great answer. Great answer. So, again, my question to you would be like, where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years? Do you think you'll still be on Sportsnet doing your thing, or do you think you might, again, if an ESPN or a Fox Sports offer you a bigger contract, more money, more control potentially, would you think about that offer, or would you just stay where you are right now?
One rule of life is really broadcasting the same way as you never say never. So as soon as I say never, this is going to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't say this to scare anyone, but I don't know that Sportsnet will exist in 10 or 15 years. Not that it won't exist, but what will linear broadcasting look like? I think, we're all going to work for apps.
Yeah.
And or we're all going to work for platforms.
Yeah.
So I think the landscape will be totally different.
Yeah.
And whether I'm a employee of Sportsnet as we've grown to know it.
Yeah.
Or whether I'm an employee of a media platform.
Yeah.
Or just a freelancer that bounces around, or I'm just an employee for the telecom itself, and then you get your content directly from Rogers or Bell, or tell us, whoever. Who knows? I think the most important thing for me is I want to be telling good stories.
Yeah.
Working with people at a high level.
Yeah.
And adding to the conversation. And if I can do that, no matter where it is, I'm good. I don't necessarily desire to leave and go to the U.S. My wife has no interest in living anywhere but Canada. Our family is here. We have young kids, and family support is paramount. You know, I love the United States and have cities there I love to visit. But you can visit and come home, and you know, some of the stuff that's happening abroad, you know, isn't the most inviting. So, you know, I'm more bullish on the work, the type of work, and what we're working with. And the name on the other side of the direct payment into the checking account is less important. But I've been able to do everything I need to do at Sportsnet thus far, and I don't see that changing in the near future. God willing.
Okay. Wow. Very, 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 very interesting answer. So okay, this might be maybe a little bit of a silly question, but if Canada were to win the World Cup next year, right? What would your first reaction be, and what would you do the very next day on Sportsnet?
If Canada won the World Cup next year, I wouldn't go on TV on Sportsnet the next day. I'd be drunk somewhere. I'd be, you know, on College Street or Dundas Street in Toronto, just living it up. I would have but if they were in a final, I would have a piece of content ready to drop, win or lose. Because timing is everything. So I make sure I get ahead of it. But if Canada won the World Cup, I mean, I don't know what I would be doing other than celebrating, to be honest.
Like, I would just be like staring into space, shocked that it happened. I mean, I'll never forget, you know, I mentioned Raptors winning championship, you know, but I mentioned another team. My favorite team's, you know, my favorite soccer team is Chelsea. I don't know what your favorite soccer team is, but when we won the Champions League, it was 2021, and I was in Germany, Berlin, Germany. You know, my dad got a job over there overseas. We were there for like about a year, and we came back. And I'll never forget when the final whistle. And I didn't celebrate like crazy. I was just shocked we won. Because, like, that City team that year, they were, again, so good. Like, they were stacked beyond belief. We had a great team, too, but that team was just... Like, our team was a super team. And we beat them 1-0, kept the clean sheet, and Kai Havertz scored, of all people, scored the winning goal in Champions League final. I mean, that sounds wild now, but it was surreal seeing that play out in real time. I just... you know... How do you, like, sort of... My question would be, like, how do you, like, sort of keep those, you know, those internal biases when you sort of do these sort of commentaries and articles and stuff like that? Try to be objective.
I mean, ultimately the story tells itself.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't really come at it from a fan perspective. You know, I'm trying to give the fan perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to inform you. I'm trying to educate you. I'm trying to entertain you.
Yeah.
You know, if I feel, you know, as a fan that if I feel as a fan that Max Crepeau should be the number one keeper and not Dane Sinclair for Canada, you know, I'm not necessarily just gonna, you know, be like, I'm vexed that Max isn't getting the gloves. When I have Jesse Marsh, I'm gonna ask him, what is your rationale behind your number one goalie?
Yeah.
Is it current form?
Yeah.
Is it you know, someone who can play the ball with their feet because you want to be attacking and direct?
Yeah.
Is it you know, what they've done for the national team?
Yeah.
And how they've risen at that level. So I'm going to use my insights as a fan to guide my journalism and not be a fan while being a journalist, if that makes sense.
Okay. I know you sort of talked about this earlier in the interview, but how do you sort of deal with, criticism within, some of your contemporaries or people outside, fans or whatever? How you deal with that? How you process that?
It comes with the territory. So, I'm not perfect. Criticism is quite frankly welcome. I was an athlete and we're very comfortable with critical feedback. That's how you get better.
Yeah.
So I welcome it. I'm not perfect. The only thing I expect is that the criticism is not personal.
Yes.
And so, as long as that line isn't crossed, I appreciate it. I mean, I think what happens often is people tell you when you do something well, but really and truly people know when they do something well, right?
Yeah.
They don't actually need, although it's nice to hear, it doesn't necessarily help you improve or get better. You kind of have a sense.
Yeah.
I think what is more impactful is when things have not gone as well, getting that feedback, but maybe more importantly, why. And even if you can't necessarily give tips as to how it helps, maybe you can say what you didn't like or didn't agree with. And so that's good feedback. And that doesn't necessarily mean I have to listen to it because, everyone's got an opinion and you take it with a grain of salt. But I don't, we talked about Mike Tomlin earlier, and he has a saying, coaches who call players uncoachable. Yeah. He's like, I don't run away from coaching, I run to it. Saying that, like, your job is to coach. Yeah. So if a player is uncoachable, that's a you problem. Yeah. It's your job to get through them. Yeah. And similarly, with criticism, like, I don't run away from criticism, I run to it because that's, how I'm going to get better.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great answer. I wish more people had your sort of kind of attitude towards it because, it's funny because again, I always discuss this whenever I'm talking to my guests about sort of the line between, constructive criticism and personal attacks. And there's one person that always comes to mind to me. It's, I don't know if you heard of this person, but it's Millie Bobby Brown. She's like the lead in Stranger Things, one of the biggest shows like ever. And the last couple episodes are they're gonna be dropping around like November and December. And it was weird because like in the beginning, like everybody loved her and all that stuff. But when she started getting older and she just started being in more things and it felt like kind of online outside of like the fan base of the show, it felt like people were like split on her, even though she hadn't said anything or did anything to receive it. And some of the comments I see are just straight up revolting, and it's like you don't know this person. Why are you so like pressed by somebody you haven't met? Like, to me, it's mind-boggling, right? If that person did something, that's one thing. But if the person didn't do anything, then hating on somebody just based off of like vibes or perceived arrogance or whatever, to me, it's just ludicrous. So how do you feel about that?
Kind of feel like there's a lot of people who didn't get enough hugs when they were a kid.
Yeah.
And if you met them in real life, they certainly wouldn't keep the same energy.
Yeah.
And they certainly wouldn't say the same thing. But
yeah,
it's real easy to talk tough in the comments. When you don't have to make that comment in person. So I more feel bad for people in that spot more than anything because it's less of a sign of the person they're talking about, more a sign of them themselves.
Okay. Interesting. So are you gonna like? I don't know if you're gonna like cover the Gold Cup for Canada, but are you thinking of like going to a game there, or are you gonna go there regardless?
Yeah, I won't be going to the Gold Cup, but definitely watching and be covering, the result, good or bad, on my podcast.
Yeah.
So looking forward to some meaningful soccer a year before the World comes to Canada.
Yeah. Sort of speaking about your podcast, congrats on yours winning an award. I'm super happy for you to get that. But what was the inspiration behind doing it in the first place? Was that something you always wanted to do, or was that something that was more like in the moment type of thing?
I don't know if I always wanted to do it. I love podcasts. I listen to them nonstop. Been talking to a program director at the time, Dan Tolman, about how I can be of use and of help, because I do a lot at Sportsnet. But I wanted to have an influence on the radio side of the business and the audio side of the business. We talked about concepts, and I said, I think there's a void for a podcast like this, whether it's me or someone else. And he said, I actually had you in mind to do something exactly like that. And so we tried it out, started a daily show on the radio and podcast, and now it's weekly. And it's I got a role where every week is a bit different. But that's the thing that grounds me, and that I know no matter what's going on, I'm going to do a podcast episode with someone on something that I find interesting. So it's been a cool journey.
Okay, wow. Do you what's your have you recently seen a movie in theaters?
I'm actually about to go see a movie in theaters right now. I have to jump off this call soon because I'm going to go screen the F1 movie to review it for my podcast.
Wow.
So that's what I'm going to do as soon as I wrap this.
Okay. Yeah. So we are getting near the end part of the interview. So we're gonna play this little game. It's not gonna be that long. Where I'm gonna pick two artists or two franchises or two athletes, whatever. You have to pick either or. You want to give us a little story, a reason why. You're welcome. This is sort of inspired by Drink Champs, Nor type of thing. So yeah, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Toronto or Chicago as cities?
Toronto.
Okay.
City in the world.
All right. Wow. DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry?
DeMar DeRozan.
Okay.
Vulnerable, open. It was in Toronto first.
Okay. All right. Paul George or Tracy McGrady?
Tracy McGrady.
Okay.
Paul George needs to worry less about his podcast and more about his meeting.
Okay. Okay. LeBron or Jordan?
Someone will come after me if I don't say Jordan. So, it depends on the rationale, but Jordan was my first basketball love, so I'll say Jordan.
Okay. Giannis or Shea?
Oh, Shea is that guy. So
yeah.
As much as I love the Greek Freak, the Greek Freak is not Canadian. And so on the Danforth in Toronto and Greektown, it might be Giannis, but everywhere else in our country, it's SGL there.
Yeah. Okay. Great answer. Jason Tatum or Paul Pierce?
I don't either, to be honest. But if I had to choose, Tatum, I think was a better player. I think the truth was just better branding.
Okay. 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 All right. DMX or Tupac?
Probably listened to DMX more when they were both alive.
Yeah.
But, as I've gotten older, I've appreciated Tupac's music more, so I'll say Tupac.
Okay. Wu-Tang Clan or Tribe Called Quest?
Wu-Tang was the soundtrack for my adolescence, so it would have to be Wu.
Alright. Mission Impossible or Star Wars?
So many movies have tried to do what Mission Impossible did and have yet to reach that level. So although I'm not the biggest Tom Cruise guy, I would say Mission Impossible.
Okay. Tom Cruise or Jackie Chan?
I would say Tom Cruise. Much more range as an actor.
Okay. All right. Haley Steinfeld or Amy Adams?
Amy Adams.
Okay.
I think if I had to be stuck watching one of their catalogs on an island, I would pick Amy Adams.
Okay. Christian Bale or Gary Oldman?
Christian Bale, because I respect how intense he is about his process.
Yeah.
And I watched his films with that context,
okay.
Which makes them much more enjoyable.
Okay. Phil Jackson or Greg Popovich?
Pop. It's
okay.
on a different way, with different teams, different stars.
Yeah.
And so he's raised a bunch of great coaches that came beneath him, but I think his legacy is different and probably will last longer.
Okay. Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant?
Katie will probably come for me on social media if I don't choose him. But Kawhi's got championships with multiple franchises, so Katie does not have. So I would say Kawhi.
Okay. All right. Steph Curry or Magic Johnson?
Steph Curry. He's the greatest shooter of all time, greatest point guard of all time. Okay. Although maybe Shea goes on a run, he can give him a run for his money. But Steph Curry, wildly, I believe, is underrated.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Lamar Jackson or Drew Brees?
Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
Drew Brees was really good in a very specific offense.
Yeah.
I think Lamar Jackson could take any group of receivers, any offensive line, any running back, and give you a top 5 offense.
Yeah. Yeah, he's remarkable for sure. Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Was better for longer and revolutionized the position in terms of the degree of difficulty of throws he can make off platform.
Okay. Patrick Mahomes or Peyton Manning?
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
He's Peyton Manning, but with Aaron Rodgers plus athleticism.
Yeah.
So I would say Mahomes, no doubt.
Okay. Derrick Henry or Earl Campbell?
I mean, no one really remembers seeing Earl Campbell other than like NFL Films video where he's being hit and his jersey is deteriorating. So I would say the fact that Derrick Henry is still relevant in an era where running backs are somewhat obsolete. I'll go with Derrick Henry.
Okay. Mike Evans or Devontae Adams?
Mike Evans was going to wake up out of bed and give you 1,000 yards every year. So I think there's more splash with Tay. But no matter who the quarterback has been in Tampa Bay, and outside of Tom Brady, they've largely been quarterbacks that weren't good before they got to Mike Evans. Mike Evans is going to give you work, so I'm going to say Evans.
Okay. Jalen Hurts or Justin Herbert?
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Not only has a Super Bowl ring, he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So Justin Herbert hasn't outplayed anybody in any playoff game. So
Yeah.
as much as I like Herbert, it's got to be Hurts.
Okay. Wow. Josh Allen or John Elway?
John Allen or John Elway has 2 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
Josh Allen has yet to make it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it's got to be Elway.
Okay.
I think Allen has the opportunity to get to that level, but he's not there yet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Harry Kane or Alan Shearer?
Harry Kane's numbers are like out of this world.
Yeah.
And so I do love Shearer as that prototypical English number 9.
Yeah.
And I do believe Harry Kane gets a lot of goals that are just the end product of great build-up play by others, but you still have to be in the right place and score those goals. So I'll give it to Kane.
All right. Lewandowski or Zlatan?
Zlatan just had so much swag.
Yeah.
He was so fun, and he did it in multiple leagues.
Yeah.
Multiple teammates. So I would say, his crazy scorpion goals.
Yeah.
Those halfway line volleys are
a
thing to behold. So it's Zlatan.
Okay. Jonathan David or Alphonso Davies?
I'll say Jonathan David.
Okay.
He does not need to be with Canada. He's about to make the biggest move of his life.
Yeah.
Yet he is with Canada.
Yeah.
And whenever, whether it's Champions League, league play, international, whenever he is given service, he scores goals.
Yeah.
So, and ultimately, it's a sport of scoring goals. So I would say, as of right now, Jonathan David.
Okay, interesting. Christopher Nolan or Stanley Kubrick?
If I had to sit down and pick one of their IMDb pages, I would pick Nolan. For sure.
Okay. Wow. Quentin Tarantino or Brian De Palma?
Although I don't love the use of the N-word as much as it is in his films, he's made some classic films, so I would say Tarantino.
Okay. Drake or Lil Wayne?
Drake. There's no rapper you can name that I would choose over Drake.
Okay. Kendrick Lamar or Kanye West?
From the majority of my life, I would say Kanye.
Yeah.
And I would have said there's no rapper you can name I would pick over Kanye, but the turn he's made with his anti-Semitic remarks, ridiculous claims, slavery with his voice, ridiculous fashion on both himself and his partners. I think he's in bad need of some mental health help. So I don't totally judge, but if I had to choose between the two, it would be Kendrick for sure. I can't rock with Kanye as per the Constitution.
Logic or Macklemore?
I'm never choosing Macklemore for anything.
Okay. 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 Chance the Rapper or Jack Harlow?
I like Jack Harlow a lot.
Okay.
It's good flow. One of my favorite songs. Yeah. So yeah, I would. It's a great collab with Drake. So I would pick Jack Harlow.
Okay. Batman or Spider-Man?
My son loves Spider-Man, so I will choose Spider-Man.
Okay. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Okay.
Again, it's the
Okay.
toys in the household among my kids.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Marvel.
Okay. I'm thinking. Okay. Julio Jones or Justin Jefferson? Okay.
Both double J's. So I can't say double J. I would say Jefferson.
Okay.
Runs the entire route tree.
Yeah.
Again, no matter the QB, has been productive.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr?
Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
Played the game well. Was made a boatload of money.
Yeah.
And people talk about what he isn't, which is fair. But
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna give you high completion percentages.
Yeah.
Likely washed now.
Yeah.
But he's given where he was drafted. He's had a great run.
Yeah. Interesting. Aaron Donald or Lawrence Taylor?
Lawrence Taylor revolutionized the position.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've seen an edge rusher like him since.
Yeah.
I would say Lawrence Taylor.
All right. Bruce Smith or Reggie White?
Reggie White won the championship and was the reason the Packers finally got over the hump.
Yeah.
Bruce Smith, as Bills fans did not.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Reggie White.
All right. Okay. Billie Eilish or Lana Del Rey?
Billie Eilish or Rags to Riches story with her and her brother.
Yeah.
Essentially coming up with music themselves is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Talented family sibling.
Yeah.
She's got some low-key bangers, so I'll say Billie Eilish.
Okay. Olivia Rodrigo or Miley Cyrus?
Dabbled with different genres.
Yeah.
And probably has the best Jolene cover.
Yeah.
So I'll say Miley.
Okay. Nikola Jokic or Shaq?
Jokic's numbers are crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I personally prefer Shaq, but what the Joker has done is undeniable.
Yeah, it is undeniable. Okay. Donovan Mitchell or Anthony Edwards?
Ant-Man. I
Okay.
think he's really, really fun to watch. And I think he'll learn the lessons from this playoff and come back even better.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Megan Fox or Millie Bobby Brown?
Megan Fox. That's one of the first women of hip hop culture.
Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting answer. Viola Davis or Angela Bassett?
Love Angela Bassett. She's done a lot of great work, but Viola Davis, whether it's film, whether it's Broadway, whether it's television series, she always brings it. And so She's my choice.
Okay. Wow. The Weeknd or Frank Ocean?
Ooh, tough one. I mean, The Weeknd's early stuff was great. Not feeling some of his new stuff, although Timeless is a great record that I mess with.
Yeah.
Do love Frank Ocean, but I think The Weeknd's highs are a bit higher.
Okay.
So I'll go with The Weeknd.
Okay. Steve Lacy or Daniel Caesar?
Daniel Caesar, big time. Lots of heavy rotation by Daniel Caesar in my house.
Okay. Night Lovell or Sean Leon?
Neither. Not a fan of either.
Really? You have to pick one, man.
Leon.
Okay. All right. Playboy Cardi or Lil Uzi Vert?
I'm too old for both of them, likely.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose, I'd pick Playboy Cardi just because I've certainly got more of him on playlist right now.
Okay. Future or Young Thug?
Russell Wilson fans might not love this answer, but I would say Future.
Okay. Okay. Speaking of Russell Wilson or Donovan McNabb?
Donovan McNabb.
Okay.
He's a sports star in college, married a Canadian, so we got love for Donovan McNabb. And most importantly, his name is Donovan, so I have to choose him.
Okay. Tony Romo or Dak Prescott?
Dak Prescott, no question. Dak is much better under pressure.
Okay. Wow, okay. CJ Stroud or Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
They're very similar, had a similar rookie season. I just think Jaden Daniels' ability to run is a tiebreaker.
Okay. Interesting. Oh. Okay. All right. Amari Cooper or Odell Beckham Jr.?
OBJ was box office.
Yeah.
It was one of the craziest catches ever, so I'd say Odell.
Okay. All right. Damian Lillard or Kyrie Irving?
Kyrie hit the biggest shot to win a championship.
Yeah. Okay. Chris Bosh or Kevin Love?
Chris Bosh had the biggest rebound to win a championship.
That's fast. Rick Carlisle or Eric Spoelstra?
Well, both great. Carlisle could win a championship with two different teams.
Yeah.
As underdogs both times. So if he does it, I would give him the nod. But as a time of recording this, Spoelstra would be the guy.
Okay. Last of Us or GTA?
Don't consume either. But I feel like if I had to watch one, it would be Last of Us.
Okay. I don't know if you play video games, but Need for Speed or Forza?
I don't play video games. So I could guess, but I wouldn't give you a good answer.
Okay. KRS-One or Rackham?
KRS-One, one of the original great MCs. Step into a world still would get any party going right now.
Yeah. Gucci Mane or Waka Flocka Flame?
It's Gucci.
Okay.
Kids would say.
All right. Okay. Metro Booming or Mike Will Made It?
I mean, Drake won't like this answer, but Metro has been better of late, so I'll go with Metro.
Okay. Pharrell or Timbaland?
Pharrell, huge influence on culture.
Yeah.
Music, fashion.
Yeah.
Film. So I'd say Pharrell.
Okay. Christine Sinclair or Martha?
Just Christine Sinclair.
Okay.
Full stop. No Canadian soccer player, no women's soccer player would be above her.
Okay. Great answer. Wow. Maldini or Beckenbauer?
I didn't see either of them play. But Beckenbauer just sounds hard, so go with Beckenbauer.
Alright. Nemanja Vidic or Virgil van Dijk?
I'm a Man U guy, so Vidic.
Okay. Okay. Kevin De Bruyne or Frank Lampard?
I'm as a Man U guy, it was tough seeing De Bruyne still at City for all those years.
Yeah.
But as an England guy, it was tough seeing Lampard flop for the Three Lions for all those years. So I'll say De Bruyne.
Okay. Lukaku or Morata?
I mean, I guess I should say Lukaku because I'm a Man U guy, but I've seen him waste so many great chances. So Morata.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Van de Sar or Thibaut Courtois?
Van de Sar.
Okay.
Underrated.
Yeah, he is.
Great with his feet. Great shot stopper. Great on PKs. But
yeah.
Complete goalie.
Yeah. Wow. Stranger Things or Game of Thrones?
I watched either, but I don't love the Game of Thrones aspect of taking over the timeline whenever it's on, so I'll just pick Stranger Things.
Okay. Breaking Bad or Sopranos?
Sopranos. Ending questionable, but one of the best shows of all time.
The Wire or Better Call Saul?
The Wire, you can make an argument. It is the best show of all time.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. The Dark Knight or Avengers Endgame?
Dark Knight.
Okay.
Certainly, obviously, tragically, a tough watch for some, but a great piece of filmmaking.
Okay. Dark Knight Rises or Captain America and the Winter Soldier?
Captain America, better cast.
Okay. Marilyn Monroe or Audrey Hepburn?
Just because I'm all about the Kennedy rumors, Marilyn Monroe.
Okay. Ana de Armas or Gal Gadot?
The Armas.
Okay. Keanu Reeves or Bruce Willis?
Always support Canadians.
All right.
Speed, great movie.
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone or Arnie?
Sly.
Okay.
Made man.
Yeah, he is. Tron Legacy or Super 8?
Super 8.
Okay. Ryan Johnson or J.J. Abrams?
J.J. Abrams.
Okay. Wow. Al Pacino or Robert De Niro?
I like the same guy, but I enjoy him in any given Sunday, so Al Pacino.
Okay. Leonardo DiCaprio or Daniel Day-Lewis?
Leo. So always roll with some baddies.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Emma Stone or Anya Taylor-Joy?
Emma Stone.
Okay. 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 Jadakiss or Styles P?
Jada.
Yeah.
Love that.
Okay. 50 Cent or T.I.?
50's plenty on social media, so 50.
Okay. Okay. Beyonce or Prince?
Queen Bee. It is my correct answer, but even if it wasn't, the Beehive would come for me. So, yes.
Okay. Michael Jackson or Frank Sinatra?
Frank Sinatra, I'm gonna surprise people, but there's no child allegations of Sinatra, so Sinatra.
Wow. Taylor Swift or Paul McCartney?
Taylor Swift, undeniable voice.
Yeah, it is. Ty Dolla $ign or Nate Dogg?
Nate Dogg.
Okay.
One of the smoothest vocals of all time.
Yeah, for sure. Rita Ora or Ray?
Rita Ora.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Amy Winehouse or Adele?
Last Winehouse too soon, but Adele.
Okay.
Shout out to Clutch.
Yeah. ASAP Rocky or Travis Scott?
Travis Scott.
Okay.
Way better catalog, way better shoes.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Kid Cudi or Wale?
Cudi. Feel bad his car was blown up by Diddy. But day and night, big tune.
Yeah. Okay. Who's worse, Reagan or Trump?
Nobody's worse than Trump.
Yeah. I gotta agree with that. Thinking. Scotty Barnes or Paolo Banchero?
Like him, Scotty.
Okay.
I think he's got a higher ceiling.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Thinking. Rudy Gobert or Ben Wallace?
Lockdown Shaq in the finals.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Wow. Kobe Bryant or Zinedine Zidane?
Very different, but Mamba mentality lives on, so Kobe.
Okay. Well, all right. Darren Aronofsky or David Fincher?
James Fincher,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. All right. Robert Patterson or Colin Farrell?
Robert Pattinson.
Okay. All right. Vibes Cartel or Peter Tosh?
Vibes.
Okay.
And dance song.
Yeah. Bob Marley or Madonna?
Bob Marley.
Okay. Supercat or Beanie Man?
Beanie Man.
Okay.
Crazy catalog.
Yeah, for sure. Shabba Ranks or Buju Banton?
Saba.
All right. Yeah.
Still referenced in other songs.
Yeah, for sure. Amine or ASAP Ferg?
ASAP Ferg is the superior ASAP, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, okay. Odyssey or Gold Link?
Odyssey.
Okay, wow. Okay. Daft Punk or Justice?
Neither, but I'm going to go anti-Daft Punk, so Justice.
Okay. Nirvana or Linkin Park?
Again, neither, but I would say I'd pick Nirvana over Linkin Park just because I feel like Linkin Park's kind of whack.
Okay. Paul McCartney, not Paul. Freddie Mercury or John Lennon?
Or John Lennon.
Okay. Otis Redding or Al Green?
Otis Redding.
Okay.
Glad that the Kanye J. Otis song opened up a new generation to his music.
Yeah. Speaking of Jay-Z or Nas?
Jay-Z.
Okay.
Won the battle.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Rihanna or Britney Spears?
Rihanna.
Okay.
I'd go Ruby.
Yeah. Justin Timberlake or Robin Thicke?
Both problematic, but I would say Timberlake.
Huh? Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Both problematic, but I would say Timberlake.
Okay. Bryson Tiller or Brent Faiyaz?
Both great. I'd say Bryson Tiller.
Okay. Kalani or Old 70 Shake?
Kalani.
Okay. Good answer. Sabrina Carpenter or Madison Beer?
Sabrina Carpenter.
Okay. Tick McRae or Addison Rae?
Addison Rae.
Okay. Interesting. Arca or Kasafa?
Sorry, say that again.
Arca or Kasafa?
Arca.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Aphex Twin or Autechre?
Autechre.
Wow. Okay. 106 Point Never or Boards of Canada?
Say that again.
106 Point Never or Boards of Canada?
106 Point Never.
Okay. All right. Falloon or Kaytranada?
Falloon.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Cardinal Offshore or Chaos?
Cardinal Official.
Yes. Yes. Christopher Plummer or Christopher Lee?
Christopher Plummer.
Okay. Wow. Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi.
Okay. Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless?
Stephen A. Smith.
Okay. Tim McAuliffe or Sid Seixeiro?
I can't choose. It's a tie.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both legends. Raven or Gwen from Total Drama Island? And Raven I'm talking about is the one from Teen Titans. So I don't know if you watched that show or whatever.
Raven.
Okay. Tara or Jinx? Both of them from like Teen Titans show.
Jinx.
Okay. Sadie Sink or Jenna Ortega?
Jenna Ortega.
All right. Okay. Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp?
Brad Pitt.
Okay. Brie Larson or Rachel Zegler?
Brie Larson.
All right. Okay. Snoop Dogg or Wiz Khalifa?
Snoop.
All right. Okay. JPEG Mafia or Def Grips? Okay. Interesting. Clams Casino or Crystal Castles?
Crystal Castles.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Alice Glass or Carly Rae Jepsen?
Carly Rae Jepsen.
All right. Okay. Dr. Dre or Rick Rubin?
Dr. Dre.
Okay. Second last one. Vancouver or Nova Scotia?
Vancouver.
All right. Last one. Benedict Mathurin or Andrew Nemhard?
Nemhard.
Okay. All right. Bonus one. Sportsnet or TSN?
I respect them both, but only one pays my bills, so Sportsnet.
All right, bro. Thank you for coming on. Real honor. I hope you enjoy F1. I heard it's really, really good. I didn't think you would respond to my DM, but I really, 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 really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, it was a real honor interviewing you, man.
No problem.
You know, the world's a funny place, you know. You never know. I might be working beside you on Sportsnet, bro. You never know, right? So, I mean, I don't know if there's any internships open, but, like, I would love to do something with you, bro, at some point.
Yeah, you never know. It's a small place, so just like I ended up working with Sid, you could end up working with Sid and me. So can't wait to see where your journey ends up.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Have a nice day, man. Who knows? You know, this might be a little bit more of a... We might do another interview, you know, next year at the same time as well. So, yeah.
Sure. All right, man. Easy.
You too. Bye. That was another interview. That was another episode of the Renegade podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the same way I enjoyed putting this thing together. Have a very nice day. See you guys next time.